You want to talk about P. Diddy?
Well, I thought you wanted to talk about P. Diddy.
I said you should make a podcast on P. Diddy. It's like all over the place right now.
Yeah, it is. I saw that my friend Jason did a 5-minute clip on him, kind of reviewing some of the stuff. Did you see any of the documentaries?
No, I haven't seen any documentaries. I mean, I see a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I'll watch little clips, and I kind of you got to be kind of discerning. I'll watch some of the stuff, and then I'll all right, because they start going off in a conspiracy theory way quick, and they want to start connecting all of these dots going back to 1995, and he killed Big E and Pac and all this other stuff.
Wow. And
I'm just all right, let's kind of reel it back in,
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, so it gets into conspiracy theory land real quick with that stuff, and I already kind of hang around those orbits a little bit, not too much. I don't go deep into it because it gets off the rails real quick. But
everything turns into a Nephilim talk.
Yeah, I feel but no, especially I don't know what it is since COVID. I feel Christians especially have gotten really into conspiracy theories, and it's kind of I don't know. It's weird to me. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I was always into conspiracy theories, even before it was a thing. Now it's a thing. Everybody's into it. But I was into it back in the 90s, And I think it was kind of the culture. We're both Gen X, and it was kind of we're the our parents were the hippies. So we were kind of growing up with you don't trust authority, you don't trust nobody over 20,
right?
All this stuff. So it was kind of just naturally you kind of lean that way. You don't trust the cops, man. You don't trust these people.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, you get kind of I did anyways. I got a little older and maybe got a little more conservative, especially after I got saved. But then now it's just, I don't know, it's kind of crazy.
And then you have kids.
Yeah, you
get
kids.
Really conservative.
Yeah. You just, I don't know, I feel you just get older and you just have more life experience. When you're in your 20s, you think, I know it all. You can't tell me nothing. I know how this works.
Yeah.
I see through all this.
And when you look at a college campus and you look at the activists on college campuses, that's the first thing that comes to my mind is, I'm sure they don't realize what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because they're young.
Yeah. I was like that. I wasn't I never went to university or anything, so I wasn't super involved like that. Oh, we're gonna go, link arms around this tree.
Right.
I wasn't hippie-ish like that.
Right.
But I definitely had a way rebellious, question authority type streak.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it is good, but in the same time, it's very easy. We're called to, to submit to the authorities that have been placing over us. And I already don't, I've never been, a big fan of the cop. That's just the way I grew up.
Sure.
Oh, here comes the cops.
Yeah.
You know, so, I already kind of have that bend. So, I got to really kind of, reel that in because, it's way easy for me to be yeah, let's go smash in that window and burn this place down.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, that's why I'm here. Even I think with Pastor Scott, is I recognized in my 20s that I needed some kind of balance, kind of in me, that I needed a person in my life that was going to pull me a different direction, because I easily was part of those subcultures that wanted to just, go to my junior high and burn it down, and go to, smoke bong loads and break into things and do, rebel. And so when I met Scott, I met a guy who was totally different from me, who's kind of on the other side of the fence, he was kind of this conservative guy, and his dad was a lawyer, and he lived on a golf course, and it was just much different,
Yeah.
But he was compassionate, and he loved, and he needed Jesus, and he wasn't self-righteous or anything. So that's kind of why, one of the reasons I think that me and him got kind of connected, how maybe the Lord brought us together and said, hey, you need each other, you need a little bit of that balance.
But you were 18, weren't you, when you got saved? 18, 19?
Yeah, I was around, I think my last year of high school, it was when really I ended up kind of saying, I want God. I wasn't quite sure what that meant at that time. I just knew I was reading the Bible, and the God of the Bible made sense to me. The Bible itself contextually made sense, meaning I could find Israel on a map. The stories in it, the narrative, was real to me. I understood Lot sleeping with getting drunk and sleeping with his daughters. I understood Noah getting drunk. I understood Abraham having concubines or lying about his wife. Everything was really real. Like that was my world. I mean, that's the world that we live in, is one that's filled not only with good, but also with all the negatives as well. And I saw that the Bible painted a real picture of our world. It wasn't like the Zen Buddhist books that I picked up, or the Bhagwan Rajneesh books that I read. I remember reading Mustard Seed Faith by Bhagwan Rajneesh as a teenager. And the Bhagwan had his, I don't know if you remember, but he had a camp up in Oregon.
Oh, yeah?
And
I'm not familiar with him.
Yeah, he's an Indian guru.
I took that from the name.
Yeah. But, but I would read books like that would always kind of move towards, like, talk about Jesus. And so I was kind of like, that's interesting. Like, why do they bring up Jesus? Because I was not for Christianity at all. But when I started reading that Bible as a senior in high school, I definitely was interested, and then I think I got involved in a Calvary Chapel just to learn the Bible, because they teach the Bible book by book and verse by verse. And so I found a Calvary Chapel in my area through some guy in AA who was sobering up. His name was Stoney, of all things. But he was sobering up, and he went to a Calvary Chapel, and he was like, hey, dude, if you're wanting to learn the Bible, you should go to a Calvary Chapel church. And I'm like, I ain't going to church. Like, there's no way. By the way, I read your book, and I thought that was great.
Yeah. Well, see, in the book, it's like based off certain things that happened to me, but it's not really my story. It's not my testimony. I didn't get saved till I was like 33.
Wow.
So, like, in
reading the book, you would think that you are a believer at some point.
Yeah. Well, I grew up Catholic. So I grew up Catholic, so I knew about God. I knew about Jesus. I went and made my first Holy Communion, and I did all the Catholic things. But
did you do confirmation?
No, I never went and got confirmed.
Okay.
I never went and did that. I kind of like, as soon as I was kind of like old enough to like push back against my my mom, I kind of, because my mom was like, she's still very Catholic, I would say. I think she's kind of like veered away that somehow. And my dad, he grew up Catholic too, but then his mom got saved. She got born again, and she became like a real strong, devout Christian. Like, ever since I was a little kid, I always like remember my grandma was always just reading her Bible, always reading her Bible.
That's
and,
awesome.
Like, I was a little kid, I'm like 4, 5, 6 years old, and she would just like talk to me about Jesus and stuff, and like I knew who Jesus was, because like I was like, we went to mass and stuff like that, but it wasn't. I'm not saying that there aren't Catholics that aren't saved or born again, but I know I wasn't. Like, it was especially like what I saw growing up is like, you went to mass on Sunday, and then like after that, it was like, it was on. Do whatever you want. I mean, I saw this like with people in my family, and like you just like you did whatever you wanted. Like, people drank, they had affairs, they just did whatever they wanted. It was like, but you went to church on Sunday, so like it was all good. Like, you went and you took communion, and so like now everything's good. And I don't know, I just always thought that was like, I just knew that was like off. Like, it was just like this, like, I don't know, this doesn't seem right. Like, we just do whatever we want. It's very like, how I grew up is very, works-based righteousness. Like, you go and you do this and you do that and you say these prayers, and then it washes everything away and you're good again. And it was like, okay. And I bought into it. I was like, I go to church, I say prayers, and like I was just like doing like whatever, just like a maniac. Like, but I thought I was good.
Yeah.
And then I kind of, once I got into high school, I just kind of like, I'd probably say like junior year, maybe more my senior year, I just like kind of turned my back on all of that. Kind of just like, that's a bunch of garbage. That's like silly stuff. Like especially like the people, like the things that I had some friends that were like killed in drive-bys and stuff, and just like, just bad stuff. And it just kind of like, that's like, that's not what I'm living. That's not what I'm seeing happen around me. Like, this is like fairy tale time. Like, so yeah, then I got older, got into my 20s, and I saw some other stuff happen, and I really just kind of like, then I think I always believed, but then like after some stuff that happened in my 20s, I just like kind of like, I believed, but I rejected God. I was like, I reject you. I don't want you. Like, you like, the things I'm seeing happen, like, I don't want anything to do with you. And it wasn't that I didn't believe. I was just angry at God. I was like, I don't want nothing to do with you. Like, I still believed in my heart. I can't say I ever stopped believing, but I just didn't want anything to do with God. I don't want anything to do with you. And then there was like I started going through stuff, and then my dad, he would like try to talk to me. You know, he was a believer. I wouldn't say he was like a super strong believer, but I do believe he was a believer, and he would try to talk to me, and I would kind of like, my life was going like so bad, I would actually like start like reading the Bible and stuff, and he'd give me some like verses and stuff, you know, and then I would like kind of just like hang on to those verses, like almost like magic incantations, you know, not really grasping the context or anything. I'm just like, oh, you know, I have a plan for you, not to destroy you, for hope in the future. You know, Jeremiah 29:11, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I'm like holding on to it, not really getting the whole context behind all that and what's going around all this stuff. And I'm just like holding on to it, like, yeah, this is, and then things, you know, start slowly getting better again. And then I kind of like, all right, I don't need you anymore, God. You can go back over here. I'm gonna go have some fun over here. And then things are starting to go downhill, and I kind of do it all. Just like this cycle I kept going through until finally, like, I got to a point where like I feel like at this point I was born again. I got saved. I got born again. I was like 33 years old, and I got saved. And then
where was that at?
It was at my house. At my house. Like we were like, my wife, well, she grew up in the church, so she always like, I mean, she had her kind of like had strayed too, but she was like a church kid. Like, she grew up in the church. Her grandmother was like a real strong believer. And, you know, like, I still remember, like, the first time, like, her grandmother would, like, witness to anybody. She'd go into the bank. She'd start witnessing to people. She'd go to the grocery store. She'd start witnessing to people. And, like, everyone just, like, oh, this is, like, some crazy old Jesus kook. Like, leave us alone, lady. And, like, first time I met her, she's, like, just, like, witnessing to me. Do you know about Jesus? You know Jesus loves you? You know Jesus died for you? And I'm like, yeah. Like, I was, like, Catholic, you know? I'm like, yeah. She's like, I know you're Catholic, but they don't teach you everything. They don't teach you everything. They don't teach you the Bible. I know, because I grew up Catholic, too. And she was just, like, railing on me.
So she was more of the defender.
Yeah.
Like defending the faith.
Yeah. And so, like, my wife grew up that because she raised my wife. So, like, my wife had a real strong, but she'd strayed, too, in her 20s and kind of, you know, went off the rails, too. And so she started, like coming back to the faith, like realizing, like, you know, like, this isn't right. Like, I gotta get right with God again. Like, I gotta, you know. And then so she was like started like working on me, and then I was like, yeah, like, and then we started having kids, and, you know, and I knew I wanted my kids to have like something. Like, I know I just didn't like raise them like little animals. Like, they had, like, I grew up like I guess it's like I feel like I carry a lot of baggage from like when I was like Catholic, like, because like everything I feel like was like guilt. Yeah. Like, this is happening to you because you're rotten and you deserve it. Right. Everything is like Catholic guilt.
Yeah, you smoked that joint when you were in the 6th grade.
Yeah.
It's coming back to get you now.
So like I always felt like oh, I gotta do, like, what am I doing? Like, yeah, it's fine for me to live like this, but I don't want my kids to be like godless heathens. Like, they can come to that decision on their own when they want to, but. She would start taking him to church, and I was like, all right, like, well, you want to come? No, I don't want to go. So she would take the kids, and she wasn't going real regular either, because, I mean, like, that's my job. I'm the one that's supposed to be leading spiritually and like guiding the family. I was like dropping the ball big time, so she was trying to pick up the ball and run it in for the touchdown, and I was like letting her do that. And so some more stuff happened, and then I finally, like, God. So I believed at 33 I was saved, but I was still kind of like, I started having an interest in things of God, and I felt like God was working on me, but I wasn't there yet. I was like, for a long time I wasn't even sure. When I look back at things now, like, was I even saved then? But I believe now looking back, I believe I was saved. I believe God really was. If I look back over the course of my life, I can see different times God was moving, and it was always me like pulling back. It wasn't God ever went anywhere. It was just me like running from him. And then so when I was 33, like I really believe that's when I was saved. And then it wasn't until I turned 40. It would be 7 years. So it was like 7 years of me just kind of like, I started listening to like, messages and, different things like that. And I tried to read the Bible a little bit. But I was still like, kind of like off the rails, like just being crazy. And then it was finally like when I turned 40, like everything just kind of collapsed in. Everything just like, I felt like the way I look at it as God was like, all right, like, is this real? Like, enough is enough. Either this real or it isn't. And he just let everything come in like crashing in around me. And I was like, and I like, it's weird. I automatically knew, like, I knew what I had to do. I knew it was like from God. It was like very strange. Like, I just knew like, this is from God. Like, I knew like, this is God. This is God telling me like, this is enough. I've let you, it's like that Johnny Cash song, you can run on for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was like, he was like, all right, like I believe I was saved, and he was having a lot of patience with me, and he's letting me do my thing, and I'm professing Christ, and but I'm still like very much one foot in the world. And then I feel like he finally was like, no, it's enough. Like, either you're going to follow me or you aren't going to follow me. He threw down the gauntlet. He's like, are you going to pick it up or what? And because like the bottom fell out. I mean, it fell out. I was like, went into like a deep depression and everything. And I just like, I had like nothing but God.
Oh, wow.
Nothing. Like, I mean, like, not like my family left me or anything, but it's just like nothing would bring me comfort. Nothing. It's like God like took all that, like,
all your idols became just yucky.
Yeah, and I wish I could say like, and that was it, and since then I'm the perfect Christian, and if you sinners repent, you can be like me and never sin again, and never feel any of those temptations anymore. Yeah, you keep going down your road and you'll be like P. Diddy. Yeah. Bring it back to P. Diddy.
Yeah, totally. And one of the scariest lines in the Bible is it's a New Testament passage, but it's a repetition of an Old Testament passage where Yahweh gives Israel over to their sins. And it's reiterated in the book of Romans, chapter 1. And so Paul, knowing the Bible, meaning the Bible that Paul the Apostle had, was, of course, the Old Testament. And he saw that there was a time in the life of his ancestors where their sin became so dominant and their rebellion from God became so clear that Yahweh says through the prophets, like, okay, God will let you go your way. But this is what's going to happen. Like, this is how it's going to go down. You think your idols are going to be like a safe place for you, but they're not. They're going to tear you apart. And so the New Testament has this passage where it says, and it reminds me of P. Diddy in a way. It says, therefore God gave them up to uncleanness in the lust of to their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves. And it's such a rough statement because it's something you don't want to happen in your life, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, where God gives you up. And it's funny, it's like we live most of our early lives trying to find, in a sense, freedom from the deity. We're trying to rebel from the deity. We're trying to find like this freedom from him. Like, I'm independent. I can do what I want to do. And we fight so hard, and whether it's through activism things and governmental rebellious stuff or things like that, or it's just through subculture life, music, metal music, punk music, whatever. We try to kind of find our independence. And then we find, then later on, it's so pattern oriented, we find that we're actually in bondage to everything that we thought that was going to offer us freedom.
It reminds, like what you're talking about, it reminds me like when they're asking God for a king. And he's like, I think I'm a pretty good king. Like, like, what's going to happen? Like, yeah, give us a king. That's what we want, man. Totally. And he's like, all right. It's like, so you keep saying these patterns over and over again. And it's like the same thing with the quail. They're like, we want quail. We're hungry. Back in Egypt, we had all this sweet stuff. We had onions and stuff. And he's like, all right, you want some, and God does that. He'll eventually give you what you want. Like, okay, you want quail? You're going to get some quail.
Yeah.
It's going to come out your nose, and you're not going to like it very much.
Yeah, you're going to get sick of it.
It's like, be careful what you ask for.
And that's how everything is. That's how drinking is. That's how drugging is. That's how pornography is. That's how prostitution is. That's how everything is, right? Where it's like you go down those roads, and we all do that in some capacity as human beings, because we're human and we seem to be very flawed. And so it's not abnormal to go down these roads. It's actually quite normal.
Yeah, I was just like listening to a message from like Tim Keller. He's going on Ephesians, I think it's 5:8, and it like really struck me what he said. He was like, you know, Paul tells him like, first he's giving this list of like, you guys were doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, and he said it's because you guys were darkness. He doesn't say you guys like were doing dark things. He says, no, you guys were darkness. And I was like, whoa, that's like heavy.
But now you are light.
Yeah, but like just to think like without God you are darkness. Like anything good in me is like the residing Holy Spirit. Like everything else is just like I'm like darkness.
Yeah, there's an iniquity. And it's funny, I was listening to a pastor the other day, and he said something that I thought was so wrong. And I'm not one to really critique other pastors. I'm just not that kind of guy. But someone sent me this clip and said, hey, can you listen to it and just tell me what your thoughts were on it? But he said Jesus never said people were the problem. You know, and he always loved people. And I just thought, oh man, that's such a wrong statement. Yeah. I was like, he condemned whole towns and whole cities. You know, Jesus said, woe to you, Corazon, or woe to you, you know, Capernaum.
That's like, yeah, that's kind of like the exact opposite of the gospel. Like the whole gospel is like, you're a sinner. You're unable to help yourself. Like you need, like that's the whole point.
Yeah, you're jacked. Your a sex identity's jacked.
Yeah.
Your whatever identity you want to make up, it's filled with iniquity.
And then like that's what's like so crazy. Like in the Sermon on the Mount, he's like, you're like, well, I've never committed adultery, but he's like, no, if you've looked at a woman, you're like, whoa, like calm down, Jesus. Like that's like too much, man. Like because like I want to feel good about myself. I want to be like, no, I'm pretty awesome. I'm pretty awesome. You know that?
And that's what we do, right? It's like that's what we're doing in our world. Is we're all trying to find peer groups that say just that hey, you're awesome. That's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get away from an accountability, really, and we're trying to find groups and people, what I mean is friends, that will be like, hey, you're good.
Yeah.
You know, because
so everyone else is messed up. We're the ones that got to figure it out.
That's right. and whatever group it is, you know, whatever that group, name the group. I mean, it doesn't matter.
You know what I always found crazy is like, you even see this like, okay, it's like just drug addicts. You even see this amongst drug addicts. They have issues with other, like, we're potheads, man. We don't, those dudes are a bunch of drunks over there.
That's
and
right.
The drunks are like, oh, look at these cokeheads over here, all doing this. And like, even amongst like all the sinners, we're like grouping off like, well, I don't do that. I do this. This is how I get high. And they get high that way. So they're junkies over here shooting up. And like everyone, like, even amongst the druggies, they're like, grouping off, like creating these little subcultures within subcultures.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think, you know, what happens to all of us, including guys like P. Diddy, is we get to a place where that the deity finally says, hey, well, go your route. You know, go do your thing. Here is the quail. Here is, you know, all the quail you can ever have in your life. And then as human beings, we can't sustain that lifestyle. We can't seem to sustain it. Something happens. You know? What
I thought was interesting, I heard his lawyer say, you know, everything, you know, Mr. Combs was doing was consensual. What we have in this country, we have a problem with people being puritanical. And I was like, really? That's what you think? That's what you think about our culture? You think we're just all a bunch of Puritans over here, and that's why we're coming down on P. Diddy, because we're.
It's a big argument. That's been an argument for a long time.
I mean,
now in the country,
I don't see it. I don't see as our culture as being puritanical at all.
Yeah, well, you have a country that is both, and I think this is probably within all people groups in all countries everywhere, where you have a certain amount of the populace that sees particular sexual acts is wrong. And that's not just here in the United States. That's all over the place. And I even argue that even within the most liberal settings of the United States sexually, there's still, like you say, there's still a right and a wrong. Meaning even within those frameworks, even within the druggy culture, there's still a judgment of, hey, those guys are worse than we are, you know? And so you even see that within the sexual culture. But it's something that, you know, we can't get around in the United States, that we went through certain revivals, Christian revivals in the country. And there is a lot of laws that still reflect those revivals. And so a lot of people hone in on that and say, hey, we still live in this puritanical kind of society where these laws are still on the books and la-di-da-di-da-di-da. Even though they kind of seem to neglect just the overall allowance of so much sexual behavior. Like, for instance, you know, me and you growing up did not have access to free adult material.
Yeah, I was reading, I mean, I was listening to you the other day on that new podcast you uploaded, and you were talking about that. I'm like, yeah, it was true. You're talking about how, like, oh, maybe every 4 years you find a magazine.
Right.
And I was like, it was true, because I was thinking back to, like, when we were kids. Like, I remember one time we were riding our bikes to school, and, like, we'd go through these alleys and stuff, and someone had, like, thrown us
their stuff.
Yes. And we, like, found it, and it was like, you know, like the Goonies or something.
Yeah.
Like, we got a treasure.
It was the
like,
Holy Grail, dude.
And we would, like,
it's like Monty Python.
we were like little fiends. Like, we took it and, like, we hid it. Like, we gathered it all up and we, like, drove down and, like, we went out to, like, you know, where there were some bushes and stuff, and we, like, hid this under there. And then every day on our way to school, we, like, pull over on our bikes and, like, pull this stuff out. And like little fiends. And then we put it back, and then monsoons came.
Right.
And it, like, rained like crazy. And one day, you know, so we're going back, like, oh man, the stash, we gotta check the stash if it's okay. And it was like, it was all falling apart in our hands. And we were all sad. But it was like, yeah. And then, like, also, like, I remember as a kid, like, there was, like, the Spice Channel. Yeah. And, like, you're sitting there, and it's all scrambled, and you're, like, sitting there with it on, like, squinting, trying to see a breast or something. And it's like, you had to hunt this stuff out. It wasn't like, let me get on my phone, and I'm going to see 50 different kinds of weird things. Like, it was like you had to hunt it out. Like you said, like, someone, like, invites you to their house, like, hey, check out what I found in my dad's room or something like that.
Yeah. So people forget that, I think, that we live in a day of unprecedented, and it's not just free pornography, because when you say free pornography, a lot of times people are thinking about, like, 1970s, 1980s porn, you know, which is something we grew up on, where it was fairly, if you will, I don't want to say benign, but it was fairly, in a sense, simple.
But yeah, it's very, like, vanilla by today's standards.
Yeah, very simple.
Yeah, very, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was very narrative. They were feature films. You know, meaning they were films. It wasn't the brand that's out today, which is more what's called gonzo porn, which is home kind of, like, someone's filming, you know, like a home
guerrilla style.
Yeah, guerrilla style. You know, where there's no narrative. Back in our day, it was like, man, did you see Debbie Does Dallas or something? And it was a storyline. And
those terrible, like, stereotypes, like, I'm here to deliver the pizza. Like, did someone order a pizza? And it's
And again, it was very few and far between. And so when people make statements like, "Hey, we're too, you know, pure in the country, and we have these," you know, but hey, what's the last 25 years been like? You know, it's been, you have free, all you can eat, you know, adult material of any kind. I mean, of any kind. And, you know, you have kids that are raised. We have a whole generation now that has been raised on free adult material and, you know, just sexual everything.
So do you think this is the worst it's ever been? Because
in
I
our
hear
country?
Just in, no, not necessarily, well, yes, in our country, I believe so, but like in the world at large. Like, because people are like, oh, it's never been, but I'm like, okay,
No.
like, what was Corinth like?
Yeah, no.
Like, what was going on there? Like,
Right. Yeah, and that's a good way to look at it because, no, it's not the worst it's ever been. I would say this, that in a sense it's the worst it's ever been, not in what's out there, but in the distribution of it. It's the worst it's ever been.
Accessibility.
That's right. Meaning, that's why I always say the tragedy of pornography isn't the viewing of porn, it is the distribution of it. Meaning, what happened in Corinth stayed in Corinth, right? What happened in Ephesus was in Ephesus. You know, they had a huge temple to Diana, as you know there. Corinth had all these mystery pagan religions that were very much, a part of the culture. And you can get involved in these interesting sexual subcultures at Corinth. And whenever you had money in the ancient world, you could have all this intimacy and kind of the debauchery that went along with it. Meaning, when I mean debauchery, I mean a variety of sexual experiences and types and things like that. But they didn't have the distribution that we have. So you couldn't, back in those days, if you were living in, Norway, you weren't a part of what was happening in Corinth. It just wasn't a part of your world. You had to deal with what happened in Norway, But today, that's not how it is, right? You can be anywhere, and you can get the same experience in your home, And that's the crazy part. That's where today is definitely worse than it's ever been.
Okay. Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
I want to know your opinion on this. So a lot of people will take like what you're saying and they'll be like, proof of the end times. Like Jesus, you can expect him any moment now. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying Jesus could come back right now in the middle. He come right now. But I'm not always so sure like that's a sign of like, okay, Jesus is coming. Because the way I look at history is like, there's been a lot of this country's going down the tubes, no doubt. But there's been lots of times in history where like, things have gone down the tubes. So like, I wouldn't necessarily the Lord could tarry for another 300, 400 years. But it seems like in the church right now, there's like this big thing that everyone's like Jesus, he's coming. I hear it all the time. I hear it all the time from people that I know and stuff like, just look around you. He's coming. And
I think there's a part of that that's good. Meaning, biblically speaking, the New Testament church thought that the Lord was coming back. And so I think every generation, I've always heard Pastor Chuck Smith say, every generation should be expecting it at their time, so I think there's a good thing about it. But I'm like you in the sense that I tend to think that United States, North Americans, I hate just using the term American, it sounds so weird because there's a whole South America and Central too, but we tend to not realize that most of the population is outside of the United States. And so we tend to be really United States centric.
Yeah, that's why I feel like a lot of times I think people like read the gospel through American eyes.
That's right.
And they it's like there's a whole other world out there.
That's right.
It's just not about us.
That's right. So when I wrote Porn and a Pastor back in 2007, the whole premise of it was that what happens in the United States is exported to other nations. So now, and then you see other nations taking kind of our culture on sexual stuff, and that's really when you're going to see, in a sense, things you've never seen before. Meaning, when you have populations in China, India, and Africa, that's where the world is, mm-hmm. right? Everywhere else is a very small percentage compared to those continents. If they catch up to us on our culture, mm-hmm. kind of our sexual revolution, and it's happening here and there, but that's when it really gets gnarly.
Really? I don't know, man, because I think like India's like pretty out there sexually, man. They got the Kama Sutra, and they got for a long time they've been like really mm-hmm. out there sexually.
Yeah, and to me that's equated with their kind of more religious, mm-hmm. like that is like a religious sexual belief system. Mm-hmm. So when I read Ray Tannehill's book on the history, Sex of History, like she goes over like these different cultures and how it's like a religious, spiritual kind of belief, and how they practice their sex. In America, it's basically like a secularization of sex. We haven't attached it to like a religious kind of format like Corinth did, or like in Ephesus, but it's in a sense just detached from God. And my point is that like there's places like India and China and Africa that really pornography access is relatively new, and it's relatively in only certain percentages of the country. Meaning it's now the more cell phone purchases. I remember when I was studying cell phone purchases, like in these areas, they were off the hook.
So are you talking about like our modern idea of pornography?
Yeah,
then?
our modern idea.
Because I've seen like woodblock carvings and stuff in Japan. So you're talking about like our modern like idea of what pornography is.
Industry. Yeah. You know, it's kind of the newer thing, you know. And so like it's not that they don't want it, or they want it, you know, and it's not that they are not familiar with sexual practices. Yeah. You know, but like I said, the distribution of it becomes something to me that is makes our situation really unique. And that we can have a world that has a mass distribution of all kinds of sexual practices that really maybe weren't even known by people. Like, you know, like weren't even experienced. Like, wow, I didn't even know like that kind of sexual practice was there. Because, you know, it's funny. It's like, you know, today's visual sexual stimulation is all kinds, right? It's like, it's everything from, you know, the monogamous couple, which is really, again, kind of benign, to you know, the hentai world of, you know, crazy stuff.
Why do you think Japan is like that? Why do you think like they've, I mean, you know, but it seems like overall in their culture, they've kind of like, yeah, this is like all right. Like this. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I have a theory.
Yeah, I don't know if it's you know, I don't know. I'd like to hear your theory, but I don't. The first thing that comes to my mind is maybe through a gender system that's in their history, like gender rolling as they have.
I think they're the only culture, society in the world that's actually like post-apocalyptic. They actually had nuclear bombs drop on them.
I just read
and like if you look at like their culture, everything is like to the max.
Yes.
Like they're like, you know, like you look at New York City and the way it looks, it's basically like a generic version of Japan, and Japan was doing it like 20 years ago. It's like watching like Blade Runner or something.
Yeah,
it's just whoa, these people are like over, and I think it's because like they're like like we want to like what would it be like after the apocalypse? Like they're like post-apocalyptic.
That's cool, man. That's a cool thought.
Like they so they just take everything to the extreme. It's like we've had like after you've seen that kind of carnage.
Oh man,
it's kind of like let's just live it up. Let's take this to the extreme. We're gonna have the biggest TVs, the best video games, the craziest dirty magazines. Like we're just gonna we're gonna do it all, man.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I think of that culture, I think of a kind of a strict gender role culture, and I was thinking like maybe that's why there's kind of this like almost like abuse of girls, you know, in a lot of their interesting hentai and stuff like that. It's like it seems like they take the female gender, you know, and they just like, dude, we are gonna rip this apart. Like we are gonna take a girl and just kill her, like crush her on every level. And you kind of go like, man, that's not how it is, I'm sure, in just the common world of Japan, you know, like husbands and wives and things like that, you know, but it seems like there's this like fantasy of dominance, and maybe it is through the extreme things that they've witnessed in their culture, you know, through World War II, you know, and you're talking about Nagasaki and
Hiroshima.
Yeah, and what happened with them there. That maybe it is like a psychological outflow.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I find their culture like very fascinating.
Yeah, no
There's
doubt.
only two places in the world I'd ever want to go: Israel and Japan. That's the only two places I'd ever get on a plane
just went
to go.
To Japan.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, his brother lives there.
Yeah, that's the only. I just find them like they're just like so extreme, like everything, like it just I don't know. I find it fascinating.
Yeah. So no, I agree that looking at what we've done in legalizing, in a sense, pornography is not necessarily the greatest sign of the end times. I do think Americans definitely look at things way too much through an American, United States centric kind of avenue. My thought is, well, wait until the rest of the world, let's see what happens with them. That's my point. Let's see what happens with India, China, Africa, where people live, and what's going on in that world. Let's not forget, but I tend to agree with you that I wouldn't look at just pornography and say, oh, well, that's definitely the sign of the end of times or something like that. No, do I believe it's been worse? Oh yeah. I mean, as far as like temple worship, and it's hard for me to think of growing up with a temple where people actually have sex down the road from your house. Like that kind of stuff seems a little extreme to me. People might say, well, hey, you have strip clubs and you have Hollywood and Vine and
what about red light districts? What about Amsterdam?
Yeah, I would say it's just the difference is it's not infused in a religious culture that permeates the society. Where it's like if Christianity was such where you went to churches and you had sex, that would be pretty radical, and in this country, when there has been movements in the religious types, whether it's been through Indian gurus or whether it's been through satanic cults,
Jim Jones
or Jim Jones, Mormonism, it's always been looked upon as like, that's not good, that's not right, and it hasn't been allowed to actually continue.
And you think that has to do with our Christian roots? Yeah,
I think it has to do with something to do, not maybe the whole thing is the Christian roots.
Why do you think there's always so much emphasis on the sexual sins? I don't know. It always it always trips me out. Like, why do we put so much emphasis on this? Especially, I mean, it's wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to justify anything.
Yeah.
But as Christians, especially, like there's so many like socially acceptable sins in the church.
Right.
That's like, oh, brother so-and-so, he's kind of greedy and he's a hothead, but this guy, he looks at porn. Let's get him. Get him. And it's like, I know, like, like I say this a lot. A lot of people give me weird looks, but like some of the biggest jerks I know are Christians.
Yeah.
Like, and why is that? Like, yeah, we're kind of like, hey, you shouldn't be like that. Like, you need to pray on this and you need to do that. But it's like the sexual things. It's like we really like want to attach to that. Why do you think that is? I heard you and Peter talk about it once. You guys kind of talked. You guys are much more versed in this than I am. But you guys were kind of talking about, like, it has to do with, like, procreation. You guys started breaking that whole down, and, like that's, like, how we, that's, like, what we do. That's, like, God creates, and we can create, and it's kind of, like, so it's kind of, like, Satan has kind of like corrupted that and kind of like wants to twist it.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are like the metaphysics roots of a lot of it. Like, I think we did a podcast on some of those, like what we call metaphysical, like getting back to the beginning, like getting back to the very root meanings of why things are maybe the way they are, today. The church, though, the church has a history in the last 2,000 years of demonizing sex in general. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter if it's sex with a prostitute or sex with your wife. That sex itself, just the act, is what St. Augustine called the necessary evil. And so you have in the influence of the intellectual Christians over the last 2,000 years not a very good view of just sex in general. And for whatever reason, you can get into the history of why these people went this direction, but they did. And so when you had movements in the United States that were what we call like great awakenings, people repenting of sins and things like that, the roots of those movements were very much rooted in that kind of intellectual history of sex. And so that kind of teaching kind of flowed more and more and more into the consciousness of people in the United States. And so you just see it in so if you're kind of in this Christian bubble in the United States, it almost like goes with it that sex is kind of a necessary evil. There's something innately tainted with it. And so it becomes like the highly demonized act within the church. I think there's passages of scriptures that people hold on to. You know, one of them is the one in Corinthians that talks about that all sins are done outside the body, but when you go into a prostitute, you sin against your own body. And so sometimes people will take that passage and they'll say, hey, that's the sin, you know, kind of thing, which I've kind of looked at differently, but I can see that people have used certain passages like proof texts to say, hey, you know, this is the thing, you know. I'm not quite convinced on that argument. I think probably what a lot of what we're seeing in our world and why that guy said even about P. Diddy, the puritanical idea is that he's probably seeing what you're talking about, that there is this, even within the Christian world, there's this, even if you do have right sex, it almost feels like it's wrong.
Yeah, because everyone is like upset. There's no one that's really come out saying like, oh, leave P. Diddy alone. Right. Everyone's like, no, he's got what he has coming. Like, even though like as secular as our culture is and as off the rails that it is, people are still like, no, this is like too far. You've gone too far, P. Diddy. Yeah. Like the guy, he had 1,000 bottles of baby oil they found in his house. Like 1,000. He was like having like, I don't know how much you know about it, but he was having like,
I don't know much.
Oh, he was like having orgies essentially. He was calling them freak offs, which like the dude was like Caligula. It was just like,
yeah, he's just doing his thing.
Yeah, just like going bananas.
Yeah.
And like these are like, you know, 3-4 day like things, like just like getting down, and it's like, whoa, this is like...
Yeah, and I heard there was like, you know, whether it was heterosexuality, homosexuality...
All of it. All of it.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's just crazy, but not, I mean, like you said, we talked, you know, not surprising.
No, it's not surprising, and it's funny though, right? Everybody, even the most liberal person on sex, all of a sudden has like an objective, this is wrong take, you know. But I agree, there is like something within the church that certainly continues where we just can't talk about sex, which I find so weird because was such a normal part of the human biology and condition. You know, people have had sex forever, and you know, it just blows my mind that people are like taken back by the conversation or by the topic, or especially in the church.
So do you think, I've never been anywhere else in the world, I don't know where you've been, like do you see that in the church, like in Africa and other parts of the world? Do you see that same like kind of like, ooh, that's icky type thing? Because if you read in the Old Testament, it wasn't like, it's not even the New Testament either. Like sex is never really treated that way. It's kind of like, you know, it's God created it and it has its place, and this is the way it's, you know, I'm going to give you the way you're supposed to use it, but it's never like like, I mean, I think I can think of a I don't know, a couple times where I guess it's like, where is it when he calls down the fire and he's like, oh, maybe your God's going to the restroom. There's a kind of like potty humor in there.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like, I mean, then you start getting into Freud and, that's where it all starts with your toilet training.
Right. I must say I've never been outside of the United States other than Mexico. So I can't really answer that from...
I did hear, who was it? I can't remember if it was Francis Chan or something. He was talking about, I guess in Africa, like... polygamy is like still a thing, like a big thing in the church. Like they'll have like 3 or 4 wives, and I guess he was over there and he's like, what are you guys doing? Like, this isn't biblical. Like, what are you doing? And he's all you. The guy's defense, he goes, yeah. He's like, yes, I have 3 wives, but you know what? I would never divorce any one of my wives. He's like, how many people over in your country, Christians, are getting divorced? How many times have they been married? And it's just kind of like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Let me shine the light back on you.
Yeah.
Like, I have 3 wives, but how many times have you been married?
Yeah.
And it's all wrong. It's all wrong.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I don't know. I just thought that was crazy. Like, wow, that's like... but it made me think, because I was like, how can you proclaim to be a Christian and have 3 wives? But then he's like, how can you claim to be a Christian and been married 4 times?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that's cool about the Bible is you read it, and it doesn't take long in just the reading of Genesis to realize that people have a lot of sexual baggage. That it starts on page 4. With Lamech having 2 wives, and then it just goes, and you see these kind of abuses going on, and things happening, and knowing that maybe in a society this kind of polygamy was almost a safeguard for some women, meaning for them to be attached to a head of a family was much safer than being disattached, right? And being on your own.
Yeah.
As a single woman. So being a concubine wasn't necessarily like this horrible thing that we so think about, But
I don't even feel like people like present it as like a horrible thing. Like, I don't even think people really think about, what does that mean? What does concubine mean? What does it mean? Esther was a concubine. What is that? And we kind of like, we read it and we kind of gloss over it. We don't really stop and pause and think like, what does that mean? What does it mean Esther was a concubine?
Yeah.
And like I'll like, I don't know, like I go to a men's Bible group and we'll go through things like this, and I'll just be like, I don't know, I'm that kind of guy, kind of like to rattle the cage and be like, what does that mean? What do you guys think that means? She was a concubine. What do you guys think about that? Like, like, like that's like a sex slave. She was like a sex slave. What do you? And everyone was just kind of like, oh, what are you talking about? I was like, I don't know. I just wanted to let's talk about this stuff. Let's talk about what's going on here, man. There's like some weird stuff going on here that we kind of just like. Yeah, we read it and it's like, okay, and you just you don't really think about it. You're reading it, and you just don't think about like what's going on here.
Yeah, and this is where like the puritanical ideas. What happens is they kind of you get into this mental fuzziness, right? Where people get into a the word I'm trying to
like a cognitive dissonance?
Cognitive dissonance. They get into a cognitive dissonance. They go, how can these people be living in this kind of framework and still be okay with Yahweh? Like, and what they don't realize is that people are saved by grace no matter what era you're in.
Yeah, I have a brother that's like, he like idolizes David, and like David, he did a lot of awesome things. He's a cool guy, but he did a lot of bad things too. And I'll try to be like, but David, no, it says David was a man after God's own heart. I was like, yeah, he was, but he did a lot of other things too. It doesn't kind of negate all these other things he had going on too. And no, like, and like he almost wants to like make excuses for why David did the things he did.
And that's the cognitive dissonance, right? In action, is you're trying to, and this is what people don't understand. Is this is why people say, oh man, you watch pornography, are you really a Christian? But you're a prideful pomp. Of course, you're a Christian.
Yeah.
Or you're a greedy person. Or you're controlled by your fear. Or you're controlled by your insecurity.
And that's like what Jesus came after the most, was like the prideful, the Pharisees and all their pride.
Right.
That's like what really like seem to tick them off the most a lot of times.
And the answer is you can be viewing something and not be saved.
Yeah.
And you can be prideful and not be saved, but you can be prideful and be saved. And you can be someone who is in a sexual situation that's compromising the holiness of God and the truth of God, and be saved.
Okay, well, let's take that to the extreme.
Yeah.
Having said that, what if P. Diddy? Oh, he does. He says he's a Christian. Mm-hmm. Do you think someone like P. Diddy could be a Christian? Do you think he could really do those kinds of things that bad?
Yeah, and you know what? I would. I know this is kind of crazy to think about, but I look at people in the Bible, and this is the beauty of the Bible, is you look at that and you go, God, there's so many people in the Bible who have had massive amounts of intimacy, and for those of us who have been around intimate cultures and subcultures, when you hear of Solomon, for instance, having 1,000 women, of course it's broken up between concubines and wives. But when you have that kind of thing, you know, because of your experiences or my experiences, it's very anecdotal, but you can pretty much go, hey, when someone's given themselves over to this amount of sexual experience, there's a lot of things that are going on. Yeah, it's, you can't think that Solomon just went into a room and just said, oh, I'm going to be with you today, Lisa. Hey, Lisa, come over here. And then tomorrow it's, hey, Sherry. That's not quite how it rolls. And the story of P. Diddy shows that. It goes in all kinds of directions. When you start lusting, right? Lust knows no bounds, man. It can start hitting in all different directions. And so the biblical narratives paint these pictures of people having sex with, of course it mentions their wives or their concubines, and we don't know exactly what kind of sex that looked like, but if we get any inkling from Lot, there was alcohol and it was nightly. So it's anything, and what we know about that kind of lifestyle are those kind of situations and experiences, is there's a lot of nuance to it. I mean, right?
Yeah. I think what separates Diddy from the average man is money and power.
Yeah, sure.
I've done bad things, that I'm not proud of. But if I had his level of influence, what kind of things would I have done?
That's right.
I just in my own little peon world, I wreaked havoc. If someone,
someone gives you $7
even
million
now, even it goes back to being darkness. You are darkness. Not you did dark things. No, people are darkness. Even with having the Holy Spirit indwelling inside me, what would I be tempted to do? It reminds me on Lord of the Rings, remember when he's he has the ring and he's here, take it, Gandalf, and he's no, and he wants to take it, but and the same thing happens with Galadriel, I think her name is. He tries to give her the ring, and both of them are they want, they're pulling, they're attracted to it. I like that. Yeah. Give me that. But at the same time, they're no.
Can I yield such power?
Yeah, and that's why I feel
yeah,
that's the way I feel about money now. Everybody wants more money. I'm not gonna lie and be I'm a Christian, I don't want more. No, yeah, I want more money. But then I'm if I had more money, what would I do? Especially that kind of money, P. Diddy money. What would I do? I wouldn't want. It's they say I wouldn't want to do those things, but I know what it would do to me.
Yeah,
it would just I could just It's
yeah. And a lot of the biblical narratives have wealthy, males, in them. And so you see a kind of a similar story. Wealthy males with a lot of money and they tend to their sexuality kind of goes.
Absolute power, corrupts absolutely.
Yeah, and it's and would you say like Abraham wasn't he says he's a friend of God, and like your brother says, Abraham or David's a man after God's own heart, and so we have to understand that people in the Old Testament era as well are saved by faith, and that's the big argument that is in the New Testament.
Yeah, as we get to Hebrews 11, like that, like most of those people are like just big knuckleheads, big knuckleheads. Like you read that, but it gives me hope. It makes me feel like
So I don't want to skirt the question that you asked, because anybody who's listening to this is like, what's his answer going to be on P. Diddy, if he's saved or not? And I'll say this is that there is amazing testimonies of people in pornography. And I've showed the videos to different groups that I've done over the years of guys that we would all know. Like any of us who've seen pornography, we would go, oh, I've seen that person, And these gentlemen talk about their one of them in particular talks about his growing up a Christian and getting caught up in Hollywood. And that whole scene, and then getting involved in pornography and getting involved in drugs and alcohol and going down that road, and yet being convicted the whole time, and his story's amazing, where he finally pulls off the side of the road and just breaks down. And this is after a 20-year career in that industry. And he gives his life, in a sense, returns, to the Father, and very prodigal. And thing is the question is can a prodigal be a prodigal? Is the son still a son when he takes the father's money and goes to the distant land and squanders it on crazy living? Yeah,
I believe he can. I think I agree with you, yes, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
Because I want to feel good about myself.
Yeah.
I want to be self-righteous and be like...
Yeah, and the thing is that's why we can't definitively say, like, oh, yeah, P. Diddy's a Christian. Oh, yeah, this person. I mean, I have to look at myself, and I have to, the Bible tells me to test yourself to see whether or not you are in the faith. And so, it also says judge, in a sense, there's a real warning for us to be careful to not overjudge in the New Testament, to judge nothing before the time. Where at the second coming, Jesus will reveal each one's hearts, and he knows. And he is the good shepherd. He knows his sheep. And but all I know is there is biblical merit for the idea that, yeah, you can be a prodigal and still be a son. And that father's waiting for you, to get done. And those guys in the Old Testament, because we have their narrative, we see their sexual lifestyles and, meaning their formats. And we can only imagine what their sex lives were like, I mean,
how great is God to even think about that? Because, like, not only talking about the prodigal, he welcomes him openly, give him a robe, put a ring on his finger. It's not like he's like, all right, dude, you really messed up. Like,
yeah,
go ahead, come on back, but you're in the doghouse for a while, man. Just let you know. You're in
and
trouble.
We always got to remember that story that Jesus gives, because the real push of that story, as is the second son that stayed home. Mm-hmm. That is the push. The push is that there is a jealousy and a envy that is in the son that stays home, that is absolutely angry at the Father for his grace and his mercy, on the prodigal son. Mm-hmm. And that is the warning in that story, right? Is don't be the eldest son. Yeah. Don't be that one don't be bummed that God is gracious on someone who has done something and lived a prodigal life.
Yeah, and it reminds me like the story when Jesus talking about the something about they're going to go work out in the field, and one of the sons says he's going to do it but doesn't do it, and the other one says he's not going to do it but he does do it. Then who was right?
Yeah, who's the right one?
Yeah,
Isn't that the one who finally went, oh yeah, I messed up. I'm gonna go help out. I'm gonna go do it. Yeah. It's like, there's things that people get to, and they might in P. Diddy. I'm hoping, through all this, we don't want to get a heart like that son that is like wanting to see the destruction of people.
We love that, like in America. I feel like
Totally.
we love to build these people up, and we love even more to tear them down. Get your comeuppance. Like we just love to tear our heroes down.
Look at the presidency.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter who you pick, right? You have a whole crew that is just tearing down a person. It doesn't matter if it's Trump or Kamala. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's plenty of people tearing people down. No one wants to look at people in just a kind of a human way, in a sense. Everybody's caricatures, to demolish. To just wipe them down. And I agree with that's a big problem. And in our situation as the church of Jesus Christ, when we see something that happens with P. Diddy or Ravi Zacharias or whoever it is, our hearts should be bummed. Our hearts should be like, man, I want this person, I want them to know Christ, and maybe they do, and I want them to get back right with the Lord. I mean, if anything the Old Testament teaches us is that Israel could be murdering their children in religious worship of sexual kinds. They got involved in all that. And it was all kinds of prostitution going on and selling off and, just everything you could think of. They really went down a spiral, even sexually. And yet God says, I love you. I'm your husband. I'm going to draw you to me. You will be mine. I long to be gracious to you, Isaiah 30. And you just kind of get blown away over and over in the Old Testament about Yahweh's continual love for these people. And so, is P. Diddy worse than what Israel has done?
No.
Right? Yeah. I mean, P. Diddy's just one guy.
Yeah.
Who's been on a, 15-year bender?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long, all
I think, like I said, they've been saying like 30 years.
30 years.
Going like since his like rise to power, and it's just gotten like worse and worse and worse.
How old is he?
He's like...
Our age?
Yeah, maybe a little older, a little 50 years older probably.
Okay, so
because when he got like in the business, he was like, he was, I think 21. He started off like working for record companies, and then kind of crawled his way up the ladder until he got to the position where he is. But they're like, it's like the Epstein thing. There's like, Diddy's right here, but there's a whole web around Diddy that helped build Diddy up to what he is. It's just not one guy,
And that's a good point. I think that's a good point too. It's like whenever criticizing whoever it is, one of the president elects coming up, or P. Diddy or anybody, I sometimes fail to recognize that there's a whole structure. Yeah. Right? That's like a part of it.
Well, that's why they got him on RICO charges. That's like what they invented for the mob, because they could, that's the way the mob operates. Like they could never get the top guy,
right? Because
he never touches anything. He has these guys and the capos, and they go down to the cheat, and all. There's this structure, and that's why they like had to reinvent the law to like. No, like we're getting all the little guys in the street pushing dime bags. Like we need to get the top guy. So then they invent these RICO charges. Now they can just sweep them all, the whole organization. We get them all in one fell swoop, and that's what they got him on. So there's like when you get hit with RICO charges, there's like that means there's a criminal empire here. This isn't like one guy being a pervert by himself. Like this is like a group of people like that have allowed this, like created this thing.
Yeah, I would say one thing is that there's plenty of biblical passages that would show that there's not much assurance of salvation when you're in that kind of lifestyle. Meaning personal assurance. Meaning, I don't know if P. Diddy in his heart was going, man, I'm really with the Lord.
He's crying out in the morning, why did I do that again?
Yeah, just like instead he's just like, what am I, who am I, what am I doing, that kind of thing. So yeah, not much insurance for sure.
But you brought up Ravi Zacharias, and like what I learned from that was like not to make idols out of men.
Yeah.
Because I really looked up to him.
Yeah.
And I still think, and I know you and Peter talked about this before, he never said anything that wasn't untrue. You know,
right.
People want to label him as a false teacher, whatever you feel about him or not, but like, yeah, he never said anything that was untrue. And I, you know, kind of, Alistair Begg has this quote, he says, you know, the best of men are men at best.
Yeah.
Like, and I had really like, it really like hurt me like when he like it all came out about him, because I was like, oh, you know, I really looked up to this guy, like, and you know, and it just taught me like you can't put your trust in princes.
Yeah, you know, Abraham will let you down. You know, I'm sure his wife was kind of bummed when he lied
big
about
time.
her. This is my sister, man. You know, and he did it repetitively. You know.
So okay, speaking of that, I have some brothers where you know, we're going back and forth about this. Do you think that the first time, not the second time, because it pretty much says like it didn't happen, do you think was consummated with Pharaoh first time?
Let's see. The second time
it specifically says like they stopped before anything happened, but it's not said in the second time. It's not specifically said that nothing happened. And then,
which time was it where the divine kind of voice came to the king saying, "Hey, don't touch this woman"?
I can't remember now. I can't remember if it's the first or the second time, because I've been twice.
Yeah. And
I'm under the persuasion that the first time, like, something happened. Like, so, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm willing to, like, I like to discuss these things. I'm willing to change my, you know, I want to know the truth.
Yeah.
But I'm under the persuasion that, like, no, something happened. Like, something happened to her.
Yeah.
And then he let it happen again. Like, yeah, then he's the father Abraham.
I mean, no matter what, it's close enough.
Yeah, you know? Too close for comfort.
Yeah, because you know, you kind of look back. You know, I think because probably you and I have similar lenses to where we kind of maybe look at it in a pragmatic way, where we look at it like, hey, you know, what would I have done if I was in that situation? Meaning, if I was the king, you know, what would have I done? You know, and we kind of go, you know, I probably would have done the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and so we kind of tend to move towards, I think, that direction. You know, so some people are like, no, you know, and they kind of, no way, and you know, and I think sometimes they're trying to deal with some cognitive dissonance too. They're trying to kind of figure out, they're having a hard time with the idea that there is if you will, a fuzziness. Like, for instance, you know, one of the narratives we get in Genesis is very clear on what went on, right? We have all of a sudden Jacob, and then we get this Judah story in Genesis 38 of him and his sons dying, and then there's this need to develop progeny through one of the daughters-in-law, or one of the it would be Judah's son's wife.
Are you talking about where she disguised herself?
Yes.
On the road, and he goes by and leaves his ring.
Yeah, so Judah, you know, the whole story, right?
Yeah.
And Judah literally sleeps with Tamar, and this would be, what would we be called?
It would have been his daughter-in-law.
His daughter-in-law, yeah, his daughter-in-law. And of course, it's through, and you would think, like, such an atrocity would be, like, the furthest from anything of Jesus. Right, like I mean, this is like a weird narrative that's in there. Judah, you know, somehow gets horny on his travels, and it's really spoken of as like this is a common thing.
Yeah, it sounded more like it's presented like this was like his plan all along. It wasn't like, oh, what are you doing over here? Like, it was like, no, like, we're going to go sell these sheep, and we're going to do, like, you know what we do when we do that.
Yeah.
You know what we do when we go sell the sheep.
Yeah, we get a little crazy.
Yeah, we're going to go, you know.
Yeah.
It's like no different than like today. Like, oh, we're going on that business trip next month.
That's right.
Wives are going to be at home. No one's going to know what we do in Texas, are they?
That's right. That's right. You kind of sense that vibe. It's just a passing story, but yet it's an important one because we get the genealogy of Jesus through Tamar. You know, one of the kids is Perez. Perez has Jesse. Jesse has David. And you go down the list. And David, of course, King David goes into Jesus. Mm-hmm. And you kind of get blown away by that. Like, wow. You know, like, man, this. So there's no cognitive dissonance there because you have to deal with what's clearly being expressed.
Yeah.
And that is Judah literally had sex with his daughter-in-law. And actually, and this is weird to say, but I find it fascinating because it's pragmatic, but it's the truth. I mean, it is truthfully what happened. He decided to spill his seed in her. And to me, that's like radical.
What? I mean, yeah. I don't know, like, was that, like, I don't know, like, what the practice was, you know, back in those days.
Yeah, but what's interesting is Onan spills his seed on the ground, right? And he's judged for it because he's supposed to obey the Torah. And he does not, and Yahweh says no. And Judah, though, and is this Judah's, like, what gets me is this Judah's practice? Like, when he goes into a prostitute, does he have other children by other prostitutes?
I mean, yeah, like you say, pragmatically, if you want to think about it that way, like, yeah, probably. He's like, I'm going back. I don't live in this village. And it's not like nowadays, like, you can find even 50 years ago, the 1950s, like, you could go have a family in the town next over and nobody knew. Or like, hey, things are going south here with the wife and kids. Like, I'm moving 2 towns over and no one would ever find you again.
Yeah.
So imagine back then. Like, you could just disappear like that.
Right.
You had some robes on. You had some camels. Like, all right. Narrow it down a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. He was a nomad.
Yeah.
He was a desert wanderer.
Yeah.
I know. So to me, like, see, I think of that when I read those narratives because I just think, like, you know, because to me, it's a mindset. Like, Judah is going into a prostitute, and he's not just going into a prostitute, but he's okay, in his mind, he's okay with literally impregnating her. And as a guy, like, we grow up as men going, you don't impregnate that chick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's like first on our mind, like, as guys. Like, we're not thinking when we're young men growing up and we're teenagers and we're having our sexual experiences, like, in our minds as men, right? We're thinking, like, you cannot impregnate this girl.
So do you think that was, with Judah, a cultural thing? Or do you think that was a hard heart thing?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I mean, that's a good question. It's really, I think there's something to ponder about that.
Because kids, like, you know, you want a full quiver.
Yeah.
You want a full, so the kids were viewed not in our American Western way that we look at it, like,
right.
You know, I don't want too many kids because, you know, we like to go to Disneyland a lot. And, you know, like, we're thinking, like, they're like, no, like, agricultural, I mean, obviously he wasn't going to take care of these kids. He was like.
But it's a power thing.
Yeah, it's a power thing. And you even see that, like, you know, in Mexican culture, like, I'm from Mexican descent, like, you see that. It was like, and that comes back from, like, the Spanish, like, you try to have as many households. That's how you prove, like, you were a real man. I got 4 families. And it kind of got watered down because now it's just like you just have a bunch of kids and you don't take care of them. But back then it was all about how many households you could support. If you could support 3 households, you're a man. You got your business handled because this guy got 3 families he's taking care of. Then it just kind of got to, like, just have as many kids as you can. You're still a man, you know?
Right.
So, like,
yeah, definitely. I could see that where there's even a power thing in our world, right? Where if you really want to get to a woman, you really want to tear a woman down, you get her pregnant, and you put her in a situation where she's going to have to.
I actually worked with a guy that said something. Well, he married her. They're married now and everything. Yep. But he's like, the first time I saw her, I said, I'm going to put a baby in her. And I was like, whoa, dude. Like, well, wow. Like, I mean, it's like what you're saying, like this power trip. Like, then I got her.
Yeah.
Now I got her.
That's right.
And it was just like, I really like, I never heard anything like that, and I hung around like some knucklehead, but we would say like, oh, I want to get with that chick, like, you know,
Yes.
like, but never like, we were never like you're saying, like, we're like, you don't get, I'm pregnant, like, whatever you do, don't get, but he was like, no, I'm going to put a baby in her, and I was like, whoa, where's that coming from? Like, I never heard anybody I hung around say something like that. It was like, hey, you know, Tina, yeah, I'm going to try to get with Tina, and like, yeah, blah, 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 but we were never like, I'm going to knock her up, like.
Yeah, but there's people like that, you know, and, you know, there's when I was fostering for one of the local tribes out here in Tucson, I remember one mom already had like 8 kids, and she was like 30 years old. And you were like, wow, like, you know, obviously there's this culture of pregnancy and men, you know, getting women pregnant, even though they can't financially sustain the child or the children. And so you wonder what is in the mind of someone like Judah, who's thinking like, either I just don't care, you know, I'm just going to dominate, I'm going to put this woman in a tough situation, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I think no matter how you slice it, you know, I mean, you look at that and you go, man, like, oh, is that a believer in the Lord? You know what I mean? That kind of attitude, you know? I mean, that's a really rough, but I mean, Jesus is, you know, one of his titles is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't think that Judah's not like, you know, not a believer in Yahweh.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I've often thought that, like, you had 12 kids to pick from. Why'd you pick Judah? Like, you know? Why him? But I think it's so God gets the glory. So God gets the glory.
Yeah.
Because, like, okay, he did that, but what are the other ones doing? Yeah. We all got our things. We all got our issues. So, like, yeah, I don't sin like Judah, but I got my own stuff I need to worry about.
Right. Yeah.
I need to take the speck out of my eye and not worry about Judah.
Yeah, and it always comes back to grace and mercy, right? It always goes back to mercy and grace, you know. And you know, the bottom line is there enough grace? Blaise Pascal put it this way about God's grace and mercy. God is the infinite, so he must have an infinite amount of mercy.
Yeah.
And if his mercy is infinite and his justice is infinite, mm-hmm. then he works those out in Christ. You know, mm-hmm. his mercy and his justice are all seen in Jesus. And he's able to, in a sense, distribute those things infinitely to people, which is amazing. You know, because when we look at guys like Judah or when we look at guys like P. Diddy, you know, we don't have an infinite amount of grace and mercy. And all we see is like, there's no way and blah, blah, blah. And this is it. And, you know, this is why the world's going to hell and blah, blah, blah. And we fail to see, in a sense that, you know, we all in a sense have a part to play.
I heard Tim Keller say something similar to what you said, kind of like inverse though. I'm going to butcher what he said, but it was kind of like talking about just like there's no sin too big for God to forgive, there's no sin so small to keep you out of hell.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's like deep. Like, you think you're just doing these little sins? You know what? It's still worthy of hell.
That's right.
You stole a piece of gum? Worthy of hell. P. Diddy doing P. Diddy things? Can be forgiven, and you can go to hell for your, you know, it's like, wow, okay, that's like some heavy stuff there.
Yeah, I remember reading Coke Newell's book on, he was a Mormon spokesperson for years for the Utah branch of Latter-day Saints, and he wrote some books that were put out by the official Mormon church to, in a sense, propagate proper Mormon theology. And Coke Newell has this statement where he says, it's foolish to think someone can be converted on their deathbed. And I always thought, I was just like taken by that statement, obviously, because we have a incredible narrative in the New Testament of a man dying on a cross who Jesus says will be with them in paradise.
I agree with you, but I also believe that, like, if you spent your whole life living like P. Diddy, the chances of you're going to want God at the end of your life, if you spend all your life running away from God, I think deathbed conversions do happen, but they're far and few between, my friend.
Yeah.
It's like, if you spent your whole life
I could see
running
that.
from God, why on my deathbed all of a sudden am I going to be calling out to Jesus?
Yeah, I've heard Scott say that many
I've
times.
heard I got it from Pastor Lazovich, Pat Lazovich in Sierra Vista. I heard him say that, and he says it a lot of times, enough for it to stick in my head. And it's like, yeah, he's
no,
right.
I would agree with that. I would say the heart gets hard, and it is a small thing. But to say that it's a foolish thing to think that could happen, to me, that's wrong. It can happen.
No, definitely.
And we see that with Jesus and the thief on the cross. But I guess my point being is that, God saves to the uttermost and to the guttermost. And that's the radical thing about the Bible, is it upholds a righteousness without flinching. It's justice and its righteousness that it holds humans accountable to is unyielding. Jesus, unwavering. Jesus said, like, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. I mean, he is unyielding. He is not going to compromise any amount of righteousness. There is no
shifting of shadows,
sin a little bit, it's okay. There's no compromise. But yet it is littered with human beings that are just messy in every part, and can't get there without a savior.
Yeah.
And so the whole direction of the Bible is just constantly like, you need saving, and you cannot do this in your own power. It's got to be God that saves you. You need to submit yourself to God, like literally bring yourself to him and say, I cannot save me. I am lost. And that's where humility is so important as the ingredient to the remedy, the salvation.
If there was ever a time that P. Diddy was going to do it, this would be the point. This would be like, all right, like I do need a savior. I do realize it. Like this, this could be redeemed.
Yeah.
And this could be the thing that saves P. Diddy.
Yeah, and yeah, I always love stories where, like, I think it's Pamela Anderson, that in my era, Pamela Anderson was kind of like a big name.
Yeah, Baywatch.
Yeah, and so she was the, like, kind of the haughty girl, kind of thing, that typical blonde bombshell thing. And every era has them, and ours was probably Pamela Anderson was that girl, But it's I kind of really have been. I don't follow her or anything, but I've seen like some clips on where she's at today, and I like that she's kind of off in a distance, and that she's just kind of gone away.
Yeah, I just saw her. It's funny you bring her up because I just saw her recently somehow online,
Yeah.
And she's like going out with like no makeup on,
yeah,
and nothing, just very plain, understated.
And she's doing gardening,
and it's like I'm like, okay, because she's been gone. She's been in the public eye for quite a few years now. Young people probably know who's Pam Anderson, boomer. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm like, wow, what has she been doing? Because she's dating the Pam Anderson I remember.
Yes.
Big hair, Tommy Lee Jones, like,
yes.
Pam Anderson.
But I think that's like. That there's something to be said about that, that I find pleasing, like where someone who has such a limelight, such a status, and it's and a lot of negativity, meaning I'm sure she looks at her life and goes, you know what I mean? There's a little bit of like maybe a lot of like regret. Mm-hmm. Like, what did I do?
But I hope, what I hope for her though is like, has she come to a saving knowledge of God?
Yeah.
Because, because a lot of people want to believe that. I know, no one in this room, but they're like, oh, well, I don't do that anymore, and I found peace, and now I garden. It's like, well, sorry, but you're still going to hell.
Well, like Timothy Keller says, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally get that, and I hope she does. But I do find it cool that she's, what I hope for like a guy like P. Diddy is that if he could follow in her steps in a sense, to just take, find himself getting out of his world, you know what I mean? Getting out of the hub of it all, which obviously Pamela Anderson had to do in her life, and she did, and she got out of it all, and she rethought about things, and that's great. I'm sure having a conversation with her would be amazing, actually. And P. Diddy, you'd like to see that in his life. I would like to see that in his life, where he's able to just step away from all of that entertainment culture that he's been wrapped up in, because that obviously, even like what we saw with his fellow hip-hop kind of guy, what's his name, who put out the Christian album, and
what, the one that was signed to him?
It wasn't signed with P. Diddy, but the other kind of producer and rapper, God, what's his name? He put out the Christian album not too long ago, and claimed to be a Christian, and then started kind of doing...
I know he had Mace. Mace was someone that was signed under him one time, and then he actually became like a preacher, and like said he just had to get away from all that.
Yeah, not Mace. Like, it was oh gosh, what's his name? Famous guy. It slips my mind. Oh gosh.
I think also, I don't know. It would be nice to see Diddy to be able to do that, but I don't know. I guess I'm more of a realist and maybe negative. Yeah. I think there's hope for Diddy in the next life, but I think he's gone too far in this life. I think he's past the point of no return now, and this thing has become so big. There's no escaping it now. There'll be no redemption for him on this side of eternity. All he has now.
Do you think it's like an Epstein thing, where
yes, it's just like
someone's going to get him?
That's what a lot of people are saying, or he's going to, off himself or something like that, which is terrible. It's it's a terrible thing. I don't say that flippantly, like, and he got what he deserved. Like, no, it's like a terribly sad thing, because like we said, like, what would I do in that position? And I think a lot of people aren't pausing and thinking that, like, would I do anything different? Do I really think I'm that great that I wouldn't have done that? I don't know what I would do if put in that situation.
Yeah, I always tell people, if you're put into a particular context, humans can do anything.
Oh yes.
If you back us in corners, we'll go in directions you never thought.
Yeah, you never know what you do. And I think that's like, you need to stay cognizant of that. So like, just to get some perspective. Because it's really easy to get self-righteous. Like, I would never do that, but I don't. I mean, I hope I wouldn't. But I can't say that I wouldn't. I can't be like, no, I would never do that.
Kanye West.
Kanye West, yes.
Kanye. So my example to that is someone who is in the limelight, stays in the limelight, says he's a Christian, does his Christian thing, put out an amazing album, by the way. I really enjoyed Kanye's gospel album. Man, I thought it was produced amazingly. And
I mean, he's a very immense talent. I'm not familiar with that album.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember from back in the day. His first 3 albums I thought were like awesome. I was like, these are great out. These are like, I feel those are like hip hop classics. Those first 3 albums that he did, and then after that, I kind of got older and got away from that scene. And I don't know what he did after that. I do know he professes to have come to the Lord, and he's. But
then lately he's gone.
Yeah, he's all he's like all over the place.
And that's what I mean. It's like, that's what I'm trying to compare, like, a Pamela Anderson kind of way of going about it to then Kanye, where, in a sense, where Kanye has always stayed in that limelight, in that hub of it, like being on top, of trying to be on top, whether he's a Christian artist, whether he is a secular artist, whether he's a fashion dude, there's always something he's got to be that person, that's driving him. And and obviously there's a drive for power and a drive for all that in him, and that kind of thing. Where, man, like, to me, like a guy like P. Diddy, like, that would be like not to go that direction. Like, you can't stay in that limelight place. You have to somehow detach. And like, I love what that porn star did, that guy, where he just literally went off into,
the sunset.
The sunset, man. And he got involved in his church, and he just did his thing. You know what I mean? And and who knows where he's at now? And he's the only thing we know is that he's learning the Bible again, and he's that kind of thing, and that's great. I think that's cool. I think there's something to that, to move away from the big thing and to step down into the lowly thing and just be. But I mean, Epstein, obviously, he was so big for his britches, so many powerful people, so many names, so many people involved in in his world, where he just knew too much.
Yeah, it still hasn't come to light. They still haven't released that list. I don't think they're ever going to release that list.
No, but obviously there's a lot of power structures that are in place, did that guy really kill himself in jail? Did he really, hang himself on something that was shorter than he is? Did he, what? I mean, the story's weird, so there's people that do a great job kind of pointing out all the really weird things about his death. But P. Diddy, I don't know. I mean, I'm an optimist at heart, so I'm always hoping for the best with the guy,
I'm like typical Gen X, like everything's bad, life is sour. I wish I had some of that optimism, because I am just like, nah, ain't gonna happen. He's lost cause.
Yeah, gosh, I know. It's sometimes these lost causes, it's like, God gets a hold of them, and somehow they're protected, and they live an older life, and that kind of thing. I'm hoping he doesn't get killed or things like that, or something happen bad. But gosh, you just think, to hear the people talk about him that are in that circle, and stuff, you just kind of, you just go, whoa,
scary.
Yeah, and but I'm not, like we said, I'm not surprised. But anyway, good podcast, dude.
Yeah, it was good, man.
That was awesome.